We're live.
This is the committee conference on the 2025 budget, and we are going to go through language changes. And Grady, you want to take the seats? And then I got, this didn't get incorporated, this language on the,
This isn't packet.
oh, it is?
Yeah.
And then we printed all this paper for nothing.
You cut it in pieces and make scrap paper for your shopping list.
Well, at home, I turn it upside over and
Right.
print on the,
Right.
okay, all right. So, let's let her roll, Grady here.
So, Grady Nixon, Joint Fiscal Office. The first several pages of this document, these are your changes to the contingent list. So, these reflect the latest decisions of the committee. In sub A, you notwithstand 32 VSA 308C, so that whatever's remaining after the contingent list has.
That we have available for the BAA.
Right.
And then the 44 is something we've been assuming right along, it's just Emily is that we out need, it's very clear.
Yeah.
And so on page 5 of the document, you'll see the update, just to include the $60,000, On page 6 through 13, this is the one-time section.
We moved some things off the one time. Yeah. So we moved some things onto the one time.
But the 25 is a transfer, so I asked Emily about it, so you don't see it here.
The 25?
Yes, the 25 million will be in fee 101, which is where all of the transfers
go.
from the general fund will be.
So that's why it's not showing.
Okay, but the other two that went to the one time are the ones that were taken off here.
Yes, and
otherwise-
they're in the contingent list.
Right. And that's the only change that we had to what we
Yes,
already.
it's just
Right.
those.
Okay.
On page 14
Yeah.
and 15
Different before.
through the top of page 16. So this is section E312, per Rep Wood's language. There isn't an update being made here any longer. So this is the Senate version of that section. Yes, it is the Senate version. E312.1 on page 16 and E312.2. So this is where you see the intent language, and the advisory committee, giving priority consideration to services requiring annual funding.
Okay.
Grady, didn't we add in FY 25?
Here's the, I give priority to ongoing, that was something.
Right,
Page 16,
right,
line 14, but that was,
right.
that was
good.
earlier, that
Yeah.
was.
You want the same? Yeah, that's fine, I just, develop below. Hey, can we change that to FY 20, in FY 25, I should not produce any. I'm just looking at number 6. In fiscal year, what page?
Yes,
It's on the bottom of page, 15, top of page 16.
That's the same. Yeah, the language that you changed to, no less than is down at the bottom of that page. Which is.
Oh, okay, thank
Which
you.
probably what you're looking at.
That's what I'm looking for, yes.
yeah, so per the language.
Rather than no more than.
Yes, sorry, I didn't see that.
No,
Thank you.
So at the top of 16, when going from 15 to 16, syringe service programs for funds appropriated level below those in fiscal year 24.
No, well, this is what I was just
And
going through my
and
mind.
24, it should be 25, because in 24, as you remember, we did 400 then they got a grant, then they got 400
Grady,
in the budget
it has to
adjustment.
do with the source of the money.
Yeah, so it's not the total bucket that they're referring to here, it's the individual grants to programs. So it's not saying that the amount that you're appropriating shouldn't be less than it was in 24. It's saying that a provider or a program that got, 60 grand, I'm not sure what have you, in 24 shouldn't get less than that.
Anything less.
So less than what?
Less than what they received as a grant in FY 24.
As a grant or as an appropriation?
No, they're grants.
Because they got that money out of the general fund.
There was an appropriation for grants, so this is referring to the amount that the provider or program receives should be less than it was in 24, not that the appropriation that happens here is less, should be less.
So we just added 100,000 above what they got last year in this at 1.1 million. And we did that specifically because programs like the program in St. Johnsbury is having trouble because people are coming in that are more dangerous. So they don't want them. So we did in the overall 1 million in 24. We did 1.1 million in this budget to deal with the issue of they might have to hire more people because they don't want people, particularly in the evening,
They might need support.
alone
Mhm.
and being supported. So the 24 number would be 100,000 less than
Less.
what we're doing in 25.
Yes, but this section just ensures that,
You don't go below 24.
yes,
You can go above. You can go above,
exactly.
But you can't go below.
Without getting approval
Or
from
fiscal.
which is language we had in both first.
Right.
Although I don't know if we have joint fiscal, that's
Authority.
authority, we don't appropriate.
You're not happy.
I just want to be clear on
That
what we're doing
Okay.
and that a piece of the 24 money was not, it was a grant, a private grant that they got, that was 400,000. It made them, got them through the year. So I'm just trying to be clear about where we are and what what we're doing.
So the question is, if they got grant money, for some reason, to what extent does that influence what is the ongoing budgetary obligation?
Because in state monies that we appropriated, it was 800 in this fiscal year 24 that we're in. They got a $400,000 grant, 200 of which was spent in last fiscal year and 200 in, which got them to the million.
Well, this is from funds appropriated. So the first year of the grant, they aren't appropriated, you just give them authority to receive.
Right. So in this year, we got through the year with 800,000 in monies that we appropriated. But in addition, there was $200,000 in grant money. So that brought them to $1 million. And part of the issue was the health department in February was supposed to release the money, the 200,000 to make them whole. They didn't release it in a timely fashion. So they closed down the program and we had to fix that whole piece in there.
But this is all related to appropriations, not the other grants and
Right.
stuff, so. that-
I think that, part of what the confusion was at the beginning of FY 24 is that we, at least on the House side, were expecting the grants to go out, not to wait for the expiration of the federal grant before they then put out these state funds. It was meant to be in addition to, and I think that's partly where this language comes from.
So I think what you're saying is instead of the million that it took with the grant money and the state monies that we put in, regardless of where it came, what you're saying is they're gonna get no less than 800,000.
That is what that says.
Cause that was what was appropriated.
And this,
Right.
and
Not
in
what they
this,
got from the grant.
and in this fiscal year that we're in, the total amount of money to run those programs was $1 million.
So it's not less than 800,000,
Yeah, that's what it says.
so it works.
I'm trying to figure out, Senator Westman, if you are suggesting that we modify that language somehow.
I would feel better that if the total amount to run the 4 programs in this fiscal year that we're in, that it reflect the $1 million.
In FY 24.
Yes,
Well, I mean, we're appropriating it in FY 25.
Yeah.
So we
we're
could change that to FY
appropriating that
25.
plus 100,000
Yes.
for me.
Yes. I would be okay with changing that FY 25, but
I would too.
you and I would be. You and I would be, so.
So on page 16, line 2, you would change the 2024 to 2025?
I would.
Well, wait a minute.
I'm
That's
not
not-
sure what
that's-
that
No,
would
I don't
That
know,
would
but
say
I,
that
That
don't know.
that binds the
FY
2026 budget.
yeah. So in 25, well, we're both talking about fiscal. The question is, what is the point? It seems to me what you're doing is saying fiscal year 2024 is the base, and for 25,
You don't get
you,
less.
you wouldn't reduce those levels in 25 below 24 without prior approval. Is what-
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't have had this problem if, the amounts that we appropriated in
It's out the door.
24 got out the door when we expected them to, and they did not, for a long time.
But it isn't the amount, the level of funding, it was the
Timing.
glacial
Yeah.
time to get the money out the door.
Well, and
Or did that,
I think it actually did have to do with the amount of funding too, because the appropriation that we had in 24 was meant to supplement the federal
Federal
grant, and it did not. Is what ended up happening. They waited till that grant ended.
well, we didn't appropriate the grant. Then all we're talking about is one appropriation from year to year. Now, sometimes we do appropriate the spending authority in grants if they're multi-year. I don't know if that happened or not.
Won't look at this.
But anyway, they can still do it. They just have to bring approval if there's a justification for it.
If it's gonna go below,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, this doesn't
We go
prevent them from
below
going
the-
above, which is what we are doing in 25, so.
No, no.
Maybe we'll look at that again next.
I just wanna make sure that we understand what we're doing and that they need.
More than the 800,000 that this is saying.
And
This
they're gonna
will go
need the
below.
1.1 to run programs that, and not close the 4 existing sites down.
seems like the language is intended to do just that, but. Well, are you happy with it? I mean, the way.
I want people to understand at the table what we're doing. And so someone comes back in budget adjustment and says,
Like, hit the tape.
Yep.
So,
Well, seems like what we're doing is setting a base year of 24 and making sure that 25 and the way we've appropriated it is already more than 24. So
we're already there.
Is it gratuitous language in some regards?
I think that's what Rich is.
I think the only thing I would say is funds appropriated, and I'm not clear whether that 200,000 that they spent in 24 was appropriated,
Because it was grant.
because it was grant.
Oh, that was
This
my
doesn't
question.
keep them from accepting. it.
Plus, I don't know if we appropriated, it would have been
approved, if it was
Yeah, that's
to the health department.
But sometimes when you've got a multi-year grant, what they do is, give the spending authority for subsequent years, and I don't know if that constitutes appropriated or not.
That's the only problem I have with this is that
That limitation.
appropriation, that limitation.
Is this the first year we've had this language in here, or
I think
have we
so.
had this in?
I think you put it, if you had a,
We had
didn't
it last
change
time. It might not have had the.
So it's the Department of Health not reducing
Mhm.
grants, not us,
That's right, it's the Department of Health shall not reduce any grants.
which makes sense.
Well, yeah, that's right, they should from the funds we appropriate,
Right.
it's pretty straightforward,
Right.
I mean.
It was in Act 78 as well.
Is that, what's that
The
budget?
prior-
Budget, right, you're right. So we had
The
it.
current year
Okay,
budget.
Just shows don't look at things too closely, discover
Things under rocks.
The intent of it came in GovRec too. The intent of it is just to ensure that
I-
the
I
individual
don't-
grants
I-
don't decrease from year over year.
Right, which makes sense, we don't wanna.
But I would say to the, to my chairs from both sides
it's next,
is when the review comes and you do intent language, I think the intent language was to make sure it was at the $1 million level.
Well, what do we have appropriated? $1 million bucks,
This year, 1.1.
so. Things like,
This year, 1.1.
well then. Seems like what we appropriated already exceeds the 24. The only thing I don't wanna somehow end up doing is if in fact somebody gets grants, I don't wanna say that we're obligating that level of general fund replacement. At some point, but it doesn't seem like all we're doing is dealing with the appropriation as it currently exists in this budget, which is
above.
above.
Right.
So I don't, unless something terrible happened, like a rescission, something. Then joint fiscal would have more than this to worry about.
Right.
All right, well, I guess we can keep going now that we've kind of figured out.
Sorry,
Yeah.
that worst of it.
No, I think I'll remember it now.
On the intent language now,
Okay,
I think
The
we want the
responsibility.
program, we want the more programs whole.
now I would say that heading for 317.2 is wrong. Because this is a
Yeah,
lot more than adoption and
exactly.
post-permanent.
No, that was
services.
confusing to me.
And so I think we need to give a different heading because it certainly is post-permanency, but it's youth and service bureau and yeah, so I would, I don't know, it's post-permanency,
And youth services,
I would think so, we need to put youth services in there.
so we just add and
And-
services,
yeah.
maybe.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
And because the rest are all for youth services. Otherwise, I think that reflects what we've done in that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Grady will add that.
So,
All right, so moving on to,
you just, yeah, so you got, that's all contingency. And then you have stakes, and then that is
then
one
this is-
times.
yeah, and then we're making. All right,
So
so the last page, the 18 is what we've done in terms of the priorities are already saying you shall do it in a different section, and this is the section that says that we will do these as staffing and work.
So we've got the
work
extended
on-
resources
Yeah.
allowed.
And this is the 240,000 for. Is that?
No,
We're
that
not
it's in a different section. Grady told
No,
us
sorry,
that
I'm
the
going
section
backwards.
to set up the MSP and
Right.
the insurance is in a different section. And
Yes.
those are the ones
Right.
you shall do, and then these are the ones that
If there's,
if
there's
that's
capacity.
capacity. And then the last page is what I had
Oh, not.
Oh, the language, yep, yep,
Um,
yep, on the
I
service
mentioned
rate
earlier,
increases,
yeah.
yeah. to
because
make
I was
it-
concerned that maybe they would use it and, but in my conversations, there has been concern that some of the agencies are not complying with some of the basic contractual requirements. So this is just a reminder that, the money's going out, and, there's an obligation that,
They
That
follow it
that
through
they
to
can
the
follow.
next level. Yeah.
so they may not like it, but I think it's just saying you're supposed to do what the contract requires, and the 3% is to,
Mhm.
Agree.
Yes,
so increase the base.
I noticed you don't have language in here on the recovery residences.
so on page 20,
Last page, 20.
Oh, I
that-
thought we were
that
on the last
reflects-
page, sorry.
One more.
Oh, I thought this was,
There
it is the end.
Just
Excuse
when you
me.
think.
I think I should have made all those on.
Yeah, they put
No.
it on my.
Like, I was like, okay, I didn't turn it off, just, I was being silly.
And then we added B to,
At least,
Yeah, oh, yes, same thing, yeah.
same three,
yes.
right?
That was two big things.
Yes, it was, and so I think we were all set, except with the addition of changing the title and adding new services to the section 317.
Oh,
Right.
and, did I miss it? E 300.3 residential treatment programs for youth.
We did that earlier.
No, we did it, but it's not in this package.
Yeah, no, I have it, I just didn't include it because
Because it's
nothing
not new.
changed from what you had presented.
Okay, well, it has a different date, January 15th, 2025.
Yeah,
Okay,
So he's already,
The one that we did.
Yes.
so this is just the
Yes.
new ones.
that, exactly, yeah, so I made the January scene, but, okay, the committee accepted
need to
that.
see it.
so you don't need anything from me or?
No,
anything
no,
else?
it's in the bill
Okay.
is 300.4.
Okay,
Okay. Excellent.
So the other outstanding is pay act, and that, well, the PCD world.
Right, we're gonna just remove that language, just so people.
Yeah, and that it doesn't have the equity issue.
Just, right, and everybody's fine.
And then, pay act, we are going to, based on, the, decision, looking at timelines and so forth, we are going to put pay act into the budget.
Okay.
And that language is
It's already done.
It's already done. I mean, there was a joint hearing between the two government operations committees. So,
And I've checked with the House too, I mean, with,
yeah,
government operations on that.
and so,
Okay.
we had some discussions about whether that would travel separately or whether it would go in the budget. Obviously, the budget language was, constructed in such a way that permitted that, and so we're going to just, take that language and just, I'll put it with the money.
Okay.
And move that.
We often do that.
Yeah, we do that.
Thank you.
Now, the last,
Or maybe, we hope it's the last.
you don't have anything more, right?
No.
And it's Emily,
I think we've covered all of those pieces that are on this.
so the last thing is, you've been working on a counter proposal to what we had originally agreed to.
What did we decide on the PCB language?
Coming out,
Call line?
all
PCB language is out, and that's fine with the people who will worry about it.
And that was the language not wrong.
Yeah, yeah, and it's all set.
Just that,
A&R is okay, the director of finance in Burlington understands the stuff, so it's all, they're gonna get it. We had that earlier.
Yeah.
Kind of panic moment, and then.
Well, I think somebody who didn't know that it
Right.
of the money,
It was okay.
that was okay, got panicked that it got taken out.
Right.
So we confirmed that.
I added that other language after that, sure, but we don't need that.
All
language.
PCB language is cleaner.
All right, so we are down to where we are relative to emergency housing.
Unless we find something else, ma'am, other than that, I think this is it. Not too bad,
Well,
I still make the store,
you can make a
or
store,
you're gonna make the tarts.
I'll make it
So I think you have in front of you the language,
right here. Is everybody,
does any,
Draft 7.1.
7.1, yeah.
You should have it written. 7.1, that's not, okay. I am.
Does anybody?
Thanks. Okay.
All right.
So, we were in the box, out of the box, in the box, out of the box. And when I say the box, I'm talking about the money. And there is, agreement that we had, and going to keep the House and the Senate version of the amount of money of $44 million. Which was the 7.5 in base, there's a 16.5 in one time. And the 20 million that is currently right now sitting on top of the contingency list, which rolls up to where we're been working to get us into that zone. And at the same time, taking care of people's needs too.
Do you have a few?
I thought I passed it out to everybody, sorry.
Got it.
Okay. Okay. Do you have?
I have one that was
Okay.
sitting on the.
I guess
Oh,
I
you found
added two, yes.
Oh, okay.
I have a feeling yours was probably underneath there. All right, so here's where we were, the Senate and the House version that we both worked on to get into the box had at that point, 1,300 rooms during the adverse weather and 1,000 rooms, which is what the math would allow to buy. But seeing it in that form was very uncomfortable and wanted to look at it in a different way. All right, so we've worked on this in a couple ways, and we have here a proposal for you that makes a couple of changes to your language. And Emily, I'm gonna say, or I don't know, if Katie's here.
Katie's here.
Keep right behind you.
Oh, Katie.
Do you want Katie to walk through it?
Sure.
Yeah, you don't want
Hey,
to.
that would be so much better.
I don't know.
I talk a lot, I gotta tell you, I listen and absorb a lot better than I do present.
Hi,
Thank you, hi,
no problem.
I'm so glad you're here.
Katie with the Office of Legislative Counsel. So what you have in front of you is the proposal, the highlighting language, just in case you're following along, is how it differs from the Senate proposal, like the exact language, but conceptually, it's a little bit different.
I want to clarify that. The language that was included in the Senate version of the budget that was mutually agreed upon is now.
Just for.
Just for-
Stop hanging your chair out.
I've been hung out. Well, if you hanged yourself, I don't know if you're hanged out or hung
Hung
out.
out.
Okay.
All right,
So conceptually, it's a little bit different, in that you're creating in section A, a program for individuals who meet the eligibility requirements in subsection A. And those individuals, as the language says, first would be housed in a community-based shelter. If that's not available, then in a hotel or motel. Subsection B, creates an emergency, I don't want to call it program, emergency, shelter available for individuals who either do not meet the eligibility criteria in subsection A, or who do meet the eligibility criteria, but there is not, available housing through, section A. So that is sort of how this language is divided up. Section A is the same eligibility that you've been looking at, section A, subsection A. Except that with regard to the social security number, you'll see there's language or other identifying number. And then,
So these are all the eligibility definitions.
Yeah. Subsection B is where we start to see some changes. So in subdivision 1, general assistance emergency housing shall be provided in a community-based shelter whenever possible. We just talked about that. If there is an adequate community-based shelter space available within the Agency of Human Services district in which the household presents itself, the household shall be provided emergency housing in a hotel or motel within the district if available until adequate community-based shelter space becomes available in the district. The utilization of
So
hotels.
this is what's new, the yellow here.
Yes. The utilization of hotel and motel rooms pursuant to this subdivision shall be capped at 1,100 rooms per night between September 15th, 2024 through November 30th, 2024, and between April 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2025. So it's not capped during the cold
During the
winter.
Right, so this is non-adverse weather conditions time frame.
Correct.
That you're
Yeah.
talking about.
Well, just
Nice
to
to be
cap,
clear.
yeah.
Right.
In subdivision 2, we just have some cleanup that indicates that this is applicable to the eligible households, meaning people who meet the definitions in subsection A. In subsection 3, the department shall provide emergency winter housing to households meeting the eligibility criteria in A of this section between December 1st and March 31st. And then we have language that the 80 days in which somebody, eligible household, can access hotels or motels. This time period between December and March does not count towards those 80 days. Subdivision 4, we just have renumbering. So those, okay, those are most of the changes in section A.
Yes, got a question.
Oh,
Not a question, I just want to make sure that, you know, for the listening public, that number 3 is identifying that we are providing shelter to those individuals who are eligible in adverse or what we call winter weather, without regard to a room cap on that.
Right.
So
Right.
that's
Okay, okay.
Right.
making sure that the vulnerable populations that are listed are.
thank you. The only other change in this section A is to the reporting requirement. I'm sorry, these changes are numbered, which makes that a lot harder. And on the page that starts with subsection G at the top, so you probably have to flip 2 or 3 pages. There you have your reporting requirement that basically says where we would like the department to continue the reporting that happened with the transitional housing benefit last year. And then you have a new sentence that says additionally, this report shall include the department's monthly expenditure on general assistance emergency
Right.
housing.
I keep track of that.
Then you have a new section B, specific to the emergency shelters. So, this directs the department to develop emergency shelters for the provision of lodging between November 15th of this year and April 15th of next year to households that either, as we said already, do not meet the eligibility criteria on page 1, or who do meet the eligibility criteria, as described, but for whom a community-based shelter or hotel or motel room under section A is not available. In subsection B, this is directing that, there's a $10 million appropriation, to expand shelter bed and permanent supportive housing. And then this 10 million shall be used by the department to develop, several short and long-term emergency shelters geographically distributed throughout the state. Emergency shelters developed pursuant to this subsection shall be used to provide shelter as required in subsection A. In subdivision B2, this is language about reporting requirements. So on July 15th of this year, the department is to submit to JFC a plan for the development of emergency shelters required pursuant to the subsection. And then on September 1 and November 1, the department is to submit to JFC progress reports on the department's effort to develop sufficient emergency shelter beds in advance of the November 15th date. Then we have a definition of emergency shelter. It means congregate, semi-congregate, or non-congregate facility providing safe sanitary overnight and daytime shelter where limited services shall be offered, including limited storage of possessions and personal hygiene facilities.
We didn't have all that this year. That's
I have a question, we had, language, we put it in twice, and I hope it's still there, about if you're getting money with management. That's
Yeah.
not here, it's in a different, I just wanna make sure.
The case, yes, the case management, language, it is here.
It's in here.
I saw it.
It wasn't changed, so it wasn't highlighted.
No.
There it is.
Case management services is on the 3rd paging. Divided by.
Okay, all right, I just wanted to make sure that we had it twice, we had it once, and I just want to make sure we don't see
Did I
it.
lose it?
Okay, thank you.
Just inclined to finding appropriateness. Yeah, that's there.
The only other change in this package is in section C. This is the General Assistance Emergency Housing Task Force. And there were some adjustments to the membership. So there is new language halfway down the page where there's the list of membership to include a representative with experience operating an emergency shelter program appointed jointly by the speaker and the program.
And I think the only thing that I want to say here that while you know, in the House version of this in 879, we had a more expansive list, that this is obviously public meetings and being able to participate in this is something that I expect a lot more people than, are sort of official members. Although we would have liked an additional, rep there, we understand this.
And one would hope that the representatives are having discussion out with their, you know, the community that they're, or the organization they're representing, so. But that was a request that we had to have someone experienced with the operation of, which, that makes sense. I don't know, we're talking about it, we think maybe COTS might be the oldest, although in
Yeah, we
Rutland,
did,
the
yeah.
mission has been in place for a long time, you know. Or, and certainly in Haven, it's like very large.
So there's some options there.
The rest is unchanged, yes. Well, you obviously have much more than
So then the report is January 15th. We'll just, to make sure that as many people were included or had an opportunity to have a voice if having any changes in this. And I sincerely hope that with this and it feels right to have the most vulnerable in the winter to not have the limitations on the room. But yet for our fiscal constraint, which is like, I think we had originally, we had the 44, which I think coming in just a little bit higher, but I think this is an estimate. And we should be able to make
Well,
that
we're
work.
hoping
with
some of the other investments, I think that's the other thing,
Right.
maybe in presenting, we've got to really make sure that we can outline all the different strategies, whether we're talking about, you know, the program and say opens for youth.
Mhm.
The
Recovery readiness.
recovery, yeah.
There's 10 million in addition to the 44 for emergency shelter, so we're actually putting it.
And an additional 7.5 million, I think, is the number for ongoing shelter, new shelter operations.
And there's also 25 million in the OEO budget.
For the hop.
For the hop.
Yeah. So we tend to forget, or we focus just on one piece, but I think,
And there's 30 million in there in the ARPA suite for the HCV, which could also be used for event.
yes, we did add that for shelter housing.
And we put, it's going the last few years, you build out the shelters, right? Well, as
Right,
those
and that
come
takes
online.
time, right, as those come online, this number should go down.
And and I think we'll keep an eye on the house, we'll keep an eye on the other housing investments, which are traveling in 67. Which is also happening within the building that's outside of this.
I think that if, with what you proposed here, which is, what we think is, maybe a better way of expressing it and prioritizing resources, which doesn't matter what program it is, they're finite. I think we're, open to, what are you proposing here? And making the adjustments and, I think with that, we may have one or two more things.
So maybe Mark, if you might just give us a second, I might do one more thing. We might need to take a break.
Okay.
All right,
But we could,
how long